Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Cross the line from annoying to unacceptable when cars and even a catering truck start showing up where they absolutely don't belong. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. The quiet voice of the district attorney. Even though this happened about 10 years ago, the world is still small, and contractors with attitude remember a grudge longer than they remember their own warranty. So I'm changing names and posting this from a throwaway. This happened to my Uncle Dick. He was 55 then, he's 65 now. These days he's put on a bit of weight and grown a beard. Honestly, he looks like a kind Santa who could say ho, 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 while still being the strictest person in the room. And you'd never guess who he really is. But 10 years ago, he just looked older than his age. Gray hair, a neat beard, calm eyes, and this quiet way of speaking that makes people instinctively lower their voices. One more detail matters to the story. My uncle had a serious knee injury from the Army. Nothing dramatic like I suffer every day, but the knee would remind him often enough that he sometimes limped, moved slower, paused on stairs, and gave off this vibe like he should already be retired and hunting for newspaper coupons in the morning. At the same time, he was in decent shape. He went to the gym, stood up straight, had strong hands, just a slower gait. And that retired guy aura appeared on its own. And the funniest part, sometimes he'd lean into it on purpose because he loved little pranks. Not mean ones, more like, let's see who starts getting cocky if they think you're weak. Most importantly, nobody knew what he did for work, not even a lot of relatives. He was never in the news, never an elected figure, never the face of an office. He would just say, I work at the district attorney's office, and that was it. No department, no county, no title. I learned the details much later. He mentioned it at a family dinner as casually as someone talking about mixing up trash bins. That spring was tense. Rain, wind, those days when the sky looks normal in the morning and by evening you're thinking about whether the basement door is locked. One night, my uncle noticed a dark stain on the hallway ceiling. An hour later, it was dripping. First a drop here and there, then steady like a bad metronome. He put a bucket under it, said his trademark, of course, and went to bed. In the morning, the forecast was as cheerful as a message from your ex. The next day, downpour and wind, and he had a roof that had clearly given up. My uncle isn't the type to panic, but he is absolutely the type who hates being squeezed by time, so he started looking for a contractor immediately. He picked a company with a normal-looking sign, a professional website, and a guy named, let's call him Rick. Rick talked fast, confidently, and with that tone like he was saving you from certain doom. Roofs aren't a joke, sir. If you delay, mold, rot, your insurance will lose its mind, Rick said, staring at the shingles like a doctor reading an x-ray. My uncle, standing a little sideways, just nodded. How much? We'll do it honestly. Materials, labor, disposal, $14,800. And I'll give you a discount because I can tell you're a decent person. That's when my uncle first had the thought. Interesting. Not because the price was insane, roof work can cost that, but because of two things. First, Rick kept repeating decent person with this tone like he was hooking you. If you're decent, you won't ask too many questions. Second, he immediately pushed urgency. Don't wait, tomorrow's rain, give me a deposit right now and I'll squeeze you into the schedule. My uncle didn't refuse, but asked for the contract and time to read it. The contract looked standard, deposit, timeline, scope, warranty, nothing that screamed scam, but a few small details still felt off. Rick nervously joked about inspectors who love to nitpick, and he threw in, don't worry, sir, we know how things work around here. In a normal world, a contractor says we do everything to code. In Rick's world, it sounded like we know how to make it go away. My uncle signed, but that same evening he did one more old man thing. He pulled out a notebook and wrote down details. Names, times, the amount, exactly what was said about inspectors. Not because he was paranoid, he just liked order, and he hated when someone tried to control him with fear. The next day, the crew showed up, they removed the old shingles, then the underlayment. The roof quickly became naked. And that's when my uncle felt the real stakes. If there's a downpour tonight and your roof is stripped, you're at these people's mercy. That's exactly the moment scammers like to turn the music on. He even stepped outside, looked at the dark clouds, and thought, okay, if they try to play the clock now, it'll be very telling. And of course, they did. Toward evening, Rick appeared on the doorstep like an actor walking on stage at the worst possible moment, tablet in hand, face set to, "I bring bad news." "Sir, we have a problem." "What kind?" Dick didn't raise his voice, just opened the door wider. Under the old underlayment, we found non-compliance. Honestly, this might not pass inspection. My uncle blinked slowly, like someone who doesn't understand right away. "What inspection? For a roof?" "Yes, and I'll be blunt. Either you pay an additional $6,000 or tomorrow an inspector shows up and forces everything to be redone. That's even more expensive, and fines, and delays." That's when my uncle thought, there it is. They picked the perfect moment. Roof stripped, rain coming, homeowner just wants the house sealed. Dick played his part perfectly, a little confused, a little slow. "An inspector? Tomorrow?" "Yes, I don't want you to get hurt. I'm saving you, but without the additional work, we can't continue." Dick glanced at the roof, the clouds. Rick then very calmly, "Show me where in the contract it says anything about these $6,000. Rick instantly switched to, "You don't really understand how the real world works. Sir, the contract is one thing, reality's another. I'm trying to help you. Trust me, this inspector, he doesn't joke." My uncle didn't argue, he paused, that same slow pause that drives impatient people insane, and said, "Fine, let him come." Rick froze for a second. He was clearly expecting, "Oh no, not the inspector." You're sure?" "Yes, I like things done properly." Rick tried to squeeze again. "Sir, you'd better be home tomorrow at 9. That night, my uncle didn't sleep badly. He just did what somebody does when they refuse to be a hostage. He stretched extra tarp, checked the fasteners, grabbed a flashlight, and set things up so even if it poured, water wouldn't get into the hallway. Then he checked his door camera, made sure it recorded audio, and smiled at himself in the mirror. Because when someone tries to scare you with an inspector and you've got a camera, that's no longer their game, it's yours. In the morning, he made coffee, left the TV on in the background, and waited like it was theater. At 9:03, the camera showed two people on the porch, Rick and the inspector. The guy wore a safety vest with some patch, held a hard hat, tablet tucked under his arm. He had that standard overworked government employee face, except he was trying too hard. Doorbell. Dick opened, careful and slow, as if the knee was acting up. "Good morning." Rick immediately went official. "Sir, this is the inspector, like I told you." The inspector offered a hand like he was about to issue a fine instead of saying hello. "Mr. Dick?" "Yes." "I'm from the department." His eyes slid like he was trying to remember the name. "We're here about your roof. There are serious violations." Dick tilted his head. "Violations?" "Yes, you can't use that type of underlayment, the fastening, and if you continue, there will be fines and maybe a stop work order." Rick stood off to the side with an "I warned you" face. The inspector pulled out a badge, holding it so it caught the light without letting details be seen, and my uncle did what he does best. He asked for small specifics in a way that made the lie collapse under its own weight. "Wow, could I see your badge a little closer? My eyesight isn't what it used to be," he said, taking one slow, slightly limping step. "Don't touch it," the inspector snapped. "I'm not touching it," Dick smiled. "Just bring it closer, and please tell me your last name." The inspector gave something short, almost too convenient. "Thank you," Dick nodded. "Now could you spell it? I like to write it down properly. Once I had a problem because someone mixed up one letter in paperwork." Rick twitched like he wanted to interrupt, but the inspector was already in the trap. He started spelling and messed it up immediately. He got tangled on the second letter, corrected himself, repeated it, and finally said, "Just however it sounds." Dick acted like that was fine. "No problem. Now your ID number?" "Why do you need that?" "Because I'm old," Dick said, very sincerely. "I like everything in my notebook. Name, number, department." "Building control," the inspector muttered. No, the department number or code, the one in your documents," Dick said, pen poised. "And your office address, please, where I can send a letter if I need a copy of your report." And that's when it got delicious. The inspector froze, then produced something like Division 12, B, like he was pulling it out of thin air. The address was worse. First he named a general part of town, then somewhere near City Hall, then I don't remember the number, but every sentence sounded less official and more like I just made that up. Dick wrote it down carefully, and like a sweet retiree, "Could you repeat that slower? My knee can still handle me, but my memory? You know." The door camera recorded everything. Faces, voices, pauses, nerves. Then the inspector got to the real point. "Look, I can write this up right now. That will be unpleasant, but that universal scammer gesture, there's another way we can resolve this differently right now. Rick jumped in immediately. Sir, I told you I'm helping you. $6,000 and we do the correct work. The inspector won't bother you. Dick made the face of someone realizing life is a TV show. So if I pay extra, everything will be fine? Yes, the inspector said, and preferably without extra video. No complaints. Then he added their second act of self-destruction, and the camera, it'd be better to turn it off, otherwise questions might come up. Dick smiled. Oh, the camera? It's old, it does its own thing. Like my knee. He invited them for a minute into the entryway, not deep inside, just enough so they felt in control while actually staying in the recording zone. Give me a minute, he said. I'll just call your department to confirm how to properly process the payment. I don't want to do anything wrong. Rick went pale. Sir, don't call them. It'll just delay. No, Dick replied gently. I like order. He stepped away, called the real department number, I won't write which one, and spoke calmly like any homeowner. Good morning. Quick question. Do you have an inspector on a residential site visit today at 9? He said he's from Division 12B or something like that, and he gave me this office address. There was silence on the other end, and then a voice where you could hear, Oh, again. Sir, we don't have a division like that, and our inspectors do not resolve things on site for cash. If someone claims to be an inspector and asks you to turn off a camera, it's fraud. Call the police. Dick thanked them and turned back to the two men with the same confused old guy face. Okay, I'm going to go find my checkbook. Rick exhaled in relief. The inspector nodded smugly. They could already see the $6,000. But my uncle didn't go for a checkbook. He called the police non-emergency line and said plainly, I have a man on my porch claiming to be a building inspector. The department says that's not true. He's demanding money to resolve the issue. There's video. While they waited, the inspector grew nervous. Rick paced back and forth, out to the yard, back again. Sir, we need to handle this. My crew is waiting. Just a moment, Dick replied slowly, almost sweetly. I'm old. I'm slow. The inspector flashed the badge again. Listen, either you do what I say or I write you up. Oh, could I see that again? Dick lifted his pen. I didn't get your name, or your ID number, or your office address, or your last name spelled out. And then the funniest thing happened. The inspector covered the badge with his finger as if hiding it from the camera. It was so stupid that even Rick looked at him for a second like he wanted to say, What are you doing? When two officers arrived, the scene changed instantly. One walked up close, the other stood a bit to the side, assessing the situation like someone who'd seen a lot of weird porch drama. Good afternoon. We got a call that someone here is claiming to be a building control inspector, the first officer said. Who's the inspector? The inspector went aggressive immediately, trying to overpower the moment. Who are you? This is official business. You have no right to interfere. The officer, flat and emotionless. Show me your identification, now. The inspector tried to argue. I don't have to show you anything. I'm on duty. The officer didn't change tone. Sir, either you show your ID or you will be detained for obstruction and impersonating an official. This is not a discussion. Identification, now. Rick tried to wedge in, not as brave anymore. Officer, we're just doing work. This man doesn't understand the process. And the inspector, the officer turned to Rick. You the contractor? Yes. Then you're staying right here too. You're not leaving. Clear? Rick swallowed and nodded. Dick added quietly, just enough to sound like a fact, not anger. Officer, I have video from my door camera. He implied we could resolve it for money and asked me to turn off the camera. The officer looked at the inspector and repeated, slower, identification. The inspector took a step back, then another, and of course he said the line that finished him, delete the video. It won't help you. You don't understand who you're dealing with. The officer's voice went cold. Actually, now I understand perfectly. After that, it moved fast. The inspector refused again to provide real information, tried to turn away, tried to leave, and the officer simply took his arm. Hands behind your back. You don't have the right. We do, and you're about to learn why. Rick stood there like he'd been nailed to the porch. Then he started throwing threats because scammers often can't shut up at the right time. You're ruining my business. You'll regret this. I'll sue you. I have lawyers. And here was my uncle's favorite moment. He didn't yell. He didn't even change volume. The naive mask just vanished, replaced by the voice people use when the room suddenly starts looking for exits. Rick, free advice, he said. Right now is the best moment to be quiet. Rick scoffed. Who the hell are you to tell me what to do? Dick, calm. Someone who sees how these schemes end every single day. The officer raised an eyebrow. "Sir, are you a lawyer?" "Dick, short and without drama, I work at the district attorney's office." And it was like someone turned the lights off in a room full of cockroaches. For a second, everyone froze. And then Rick's face did that perfect, impossible to fake, "Oh no." After they were taken away, the story didn't end immediately because, of course, the call started. One of their people, my uncle never said who, called him with threats. "You understand what you did? Delete the video or it'll be bad for you." My uncle replied the way people respond when they aren't afraid. "This conversation's being recorded too. You don't have the right. We're not discussing this on the phone." And every call was another nail in the coffin of their version of events. As for punishment, my uncle did exactly what a normal person inside the system does. He stepped aside. He didn't run the case. He didn't pressure anyone, didn't make calls. He simply handed over the video, his notes, texts, everything, and said, "Not mine." And then the system did what it does when someone brings in extortion on video, plus an impersonator, plus attempts to destroy evidence. The inspector got serious charges for impersonating an official and trying to resolve things with money. Rick and his company got hit for fraud/extortion, and other complaints mysteriously surfaced fast because a scam like that is rarely a one-time trick. On the human side, my uncle got his costs back through restitution/compensation, and everything that keeps a contractor afloat started collapsing for Rick. License issues, inspections, complaints, bonding, insurance, and warranty problems. The inspector faced real consequences. No slap on the wrist because it wasn't a stupid joke. It was a scheme built on threats and money. And the roof? My uncle got it done properly by a different company with a calm contractor who said simple things. Here are the materials, here's the code, here's the estimate, here's the change order if something extra comes up, and only in writing. Later, my uncle said the best part of the whole story wasn't even that the scammers got caught, it was that he could sleep through rain again and not listen to a drop hitting a bucket. After that family dinner, I asked him, "Why didn't you just tell him who you were right away?" He shrugged, cut his steak as calmly as if he hadn't destroyed someone's scheme, like he'd just returned a product to a store. Because they would have just disappeared. This way, they said everything themselves. They recorded everything themselves. They brought the inspector themselves. I just stood in the doorway and pretended I didn't understand. Then he smiled and added, "Sometimes the best strength is being underestimated." They showed up with a building inspector who somehow didn't know his own department's name. Uncle just kept asking him to spell everything slowly for the notebook like a sweet old man. Turns out the only thing that didn't pass inspection was the scam. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.